really quickly go through sort of leverage, risk, and that's what these different terms mean, and kind of what that looks like on this or on these long-term trades, as well as maybe just your everyday trades. The first thing I want to mention is Oily and Bobby mentioned that I should be referring to your risk per trade rather than actual leverage, because the term leverage can be a bit confusing. It's different depending on the pair, and it's different depending on the currency that like the lot size and that sort of thing. It's different depending on the currency that you're using, that you're paying with, or that you're making money in. And so, what I'm going to refer to here is your risk per trade, and that's going to be the amount of money you would lose if the trade goes through, if it hits your stop loss. Since we are first of all, since we're using these long terms, I'm just going to go ahead and use 50 pips. We have a stop loss of 50. Oily's standard is 3%. You never risk more than 3% per trade. I've seen that number anywhere between 1% and 5%. And so I think that is kind of a personal decision that I don't really want to weigh in on in terms of how you should make your decision. If you've seen the last video I made, I told you that you could turn 1,000 pounds into 22 million. That is assuming that you use 5% risk, not 3%. So it looks to be safe here so far. That's not to say it will be forever. It's hard to say for sure. Obviously, I can't predict the future. We can only use statistics and probability. Okay, let's get down to it. So if you are trading, if you have it, let's say you have $1,000 or 1,000 pounds or 1,000 kroner or whatever. You take, I don't know how you get I don't know if you can even deposit 1,000 kroner. Anyway, $1,000 times, if we're going to say we're only risking 3% of the trade, we're going to multiply that by 3%. This is our maximum. This is what we'll lose if we hit our stop loss. Now, if I know that my stop loss is set at 50 pips, all I have to do is divide that 30 by 50, and this is going to be my price per pip. Now, I use a tool here. I just Googled, I don't know, pip value calculator or something like that, and it gives me it's FX Pro. This is gonna be a little bit different depending on what the current price of the pair is, but you can get at least a basic idea. Okay, we'll say USD JPY. I'm paying in pounds right now. I know that what I need is, no, actually I'm paying in dollars, right? I know that what I need is 60 cents per trade, and so what I'm looking for here is I'm looking for this my trade size. What I need this to equal 60 cents. 7,000. That's pretty darn close. And so what I'll do is I'll say, okay, I need a trade unit size of 7,000. So I have USD JPY. This account actually is in pounds, but we'll just pretend it's in dollars here. What did I say? 7,000? Yeah, 7,000. You set it for 7,000 and you just take your trade. Make sure that your stop loss and take profit are, what you said they would be, minus 50 and 50. Otherwise, you're not actually taking the right risk. So this is going to be a little bit more than 3% because it's in. See, that screwed up. I'm actually just going to go ahead and do this in pounds because to make it look a little more realistic. Okay, like 9,000 units. Yeah, see, more like 9,000 units with pounds. 9K. Oops. Take your trade, and then we set our take profit and stop loss. 50 pips. Oops. I want to look too far. And then what you see here is you have 30 pounds and 52 pence. Now, it's pretty close to what we said, 30 pounds. Remember when I said 1,000 pounds times 3% equals 30 pounds. So that's what our risk per trade is. And we see right here, this is the take profit, but same thing, 30 pounds and 52 pence. Similarly, if let's say we decide, Jazz Friend is doing this, and he says that maybe a 35 pip stop loss and take profit is better. It could be. So we're going to say multiply this by 1,000, sorry, by our 3%, we can lose up to 30 pounds per trade. Then you divide that by 35 pips, because this is Jazz Friend's stop loss, and we say, okay, now I can trade 85.7 cents per pip. And so I go back over here to my thing. I say, okay, maybe it's closer to 11,000. What did I say it was? 85.7. So no, that's not right. 1281, pretty close. 88. That's pretty darn close. And so, oh no, that's unfortunately I can't break this down into hundreds. I wish I could. 81. I'm going to take 13,000. I think that's closer. So I'm going to say, okay, 13,000. So I'm going to be trading the UJ in 13,000 increments here. Same trade, except now I'm going to go back and I'm going to change my stop loss to minus 35 and my take profit to also. The take profit doesn't matter as much because we're just calculating our loss here, our potential loss. And so you see here that this 30 pounds and 53 pence and 30 pounds and 86 cents, even though they're pretty far away from each other, are actually the same risk. And so that's what we're trying to accomplish here. We're saying, okay, our risk per trade is 3%. We can lose up to 30 pounds. And so we're going to set our take profit and our stop loss accordingly. Now the same thing, of course, works on other currencies. So if we say we have 1,000 pounds, we multiply that by, let's say, okay, so if you go back to like this right here, I said, I actually take about 5% risk. This is, maybe it's risky. If you look at all of the data, it's worked so far. That's not to say that it's always going to work, so I don't want you taking any unnecessary risks, but that's what I've been doing. If you go back into the stats here, you can see like the EU and the UJ. I mean, these are really, really high percentage points. So, and so I'm willing to make that risk. I don't want to say that you should be. Yeah. Anyway, so 5%. So we're going to say, okay, 1,000. We have 1,000 pounds. We're willing. Oops. We have 1,000 pounds. We're willing to risk 5%. We're going to divide that by. We're taking 50 pips. Obviously, that's going to end up being 1 pound per pip. So we go back to our thing here. This time we're doing the Euro, USD, GBP, and now we're looking for 1 pound per pip. 12,000. Not quite there. 13,000. And that's pretty darn close. So we're going to go back into the Euro, USD, and we are going to say 13,000. Okay. We make our trade. We set our take profit and stop loss. It's 50 and 50. And look at that. See, minus 50. So this is what we've said is our maximum. The maximum that we could lose. We have 1,000 times our 5%. Okay. Now, I want to show you this. If you were to go through these and you were to take 5%, this is, I'm tempted to say leverage again, but I won't. Your risk on every single one of these trades individually, you're risking 5%. This means that you are putting about 0.1% per pip of your, 0.1% of your account per pip. Now that is kind of our golden rule, but 50 pips is also a really big stop loss. And so, what you want to do is, again, just completely up to you. But if you take a look at this, on Monday here, I would have gained 35% with, you basically just take the 0 off here. I would have gained 35%. Here I would have gained 5%, 5%, 200 or 25%, obviously minus commission. On Friday, I would have lost 5%. And you go through here, and you see that minus 5%, except for one day, is really the worst I ever did. I mean, this system ever did. There is this one day way down here where you lost 15%. Now, I'm not really putting a lot of stock into Mondays. I've been using only micro lots, so this wouldn't have affected me so much. But at the same time, But at the same time, Monday's trades usually spill over into Tuesday, so you've made up for it by the time you get here. So would you really lost 15%? I don't know. And is 15 too much? 15% of your account too much to lose at any given time? Also, I don't know. Especially because I would urge you to um, readjust your lot size on Tuesday or Wednesday, not on Monday, because Monday is statistically the worst day. Friday's a good day too, but you do see, I think people might go a little bit crazy over the weekend if they adjusted on Friday. Um, there's a little more sanity in adjusting it. Tuesday is actually the second best day. I can tell you that for sure. I thought it was Wednesday, but it's actually Tuesday. And so, if you're going to readjust your lot size, I would suggest you do it on Tuesday or possibly Wednesday, whatever feels right. But again, just definitely not Monday. And so, was 5% too much risk per trade? It hasn't been so far, but that's not to say it never will be. Um, Okay, in case it's not totally clear what we're trying to accomplish here, basically what we can say, okay, I'm starting with £1,000. I'm going to say, okay, my maximum that I'm going to lose is 3%. Now I say the most amount of money I can lose in any given trade is £30. What I'm going to do is divide that by my 50 pip stop loss. And so we say, okay, I'm trading with 60 cents per trade. We're going to multiply that just to find out what the result would have been, ignoring commission, of course. In my other statistics, I include commission, but just for the sake of this, I multiply that by 350, and we say, okay, this would have been 210 pounds. Then we say, by 350, okay. And we'll say, okay, this would have been 30 pounds. 30, that's also 30. And then, 0.6 times 250, that equals 150 pounds. Not percent, these are supposed to be pounds, sorry. Not to confuse you there. And then this, of course, would have been minus 30 pounds. And so what we do at the end of the week is we say, okay, we have 210 plus 30 plus 30 plus 150 plus, oh, that's it, minus 30. So we end up with 390 pounds. So our ending balance here is 1,390. And then we do the exact same thing next week. We say, okay, 1,390, multiply that by, we're willing to risk 3% per trade, 41.7 divided by our 50 pips, because that's our stop loss again. Now instead of 60 cents or 60 pence, we're trading 83.4 pence. We're going to as close to that as we can. These are theoretical numbers. So we're going to multiply that by 150, and we say, okay, 125. So this day we made 125.1. On Wednesday, shoot, I don't even remember, 1390 times 0.3 divided by 50 equals, I have to remember that, 0.834. Multiply that also by 150, so we're 125.1. This time we multiply it by 50, equals 41.7. Same thing on Friday. And so then we're going to add those together. 125.1 plus 125.1 plus 41.7 plus 41.7. And that's it. We're missing a Monday here, so what happened here? Hold on. 5.1 times 2 is going to be 250.2 plus 41.7 times 2. 333.6. And then we're going to add that 133.6 to our balance here, plus 1390. So we end up with 1723.6. 1723.6. Oops. And then we start all over again on this Tuesday. Again, I wouldn't recommend starting on Monday, but you can go ahead, since we just have Tuesday's data here, you can just continue through it. And then you continue on through the week. And, we've already made, even with 3% risk, we've already made 723 pounds. And, that's a 73% increase in 2 weeks. And so I think that's something to be proud of. I've explained that well enough. This is just forget the term leverage. We'll talk about risk per trade because it's going to be different depending on every trade. And for me personally, I'm going to take more risk per trade on the EU compared to say the GU because the GU has 55.9% accuracy. The EU has 85.29. This is really really good when you're talking about like a 1-to-1 risk to reward ratio. 85% is a really really high percentage, and so I don't mind giving that 5% of my account, that once in a while that I lose. Whereas the GU, maybe I'm really only giving it 1%. With the GJ maybe 2%, etc. And the UJ probably again 5%. That's me personally, but I don't want that to be your justification for using too much, for risking too much every single trade. If you guys have any questions about that, hopefully I've kind of explained it. I don't know that I could go into it in a whole lot more detail than that without taking specific questions. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you. I won't be here on Wednesday, but I'll see you on Thursday. Today's Tuesday. See ya.